Well, I'd like to welcome the new people that are with us today, and hopefully you'll find some of this interesting. The topic of discussion, or what I've tried to organize thoughts around, is prayer, contemplation, and I've modified that a little bit to include manifestation, because it seems like that's what ends up happening. And again, if you want these slides and stuff, just let me know. I'll post them somewhere, or send them to you if you send me a text or something like that. And you're welcome to use anything that you like and that you find. And let me see if I can. Okay. And the first thing I wanted to do is, and I always forget this, but Connie reminded me, if you'd put a slide in that said centering meditation or brief centering meditation, it'd be easier to remember. So to start with, I'd like to just take a few moments, and I start in something like this by concentrating at the top of my head, and just feel that pulsation or that awareness, that slight pressure due to your focus and your attention, and feel that and relax into it. As you breathe in, feel that flow of energy, that flow of life force coming into your body. And as you exhale, relax and let the stress go from you. Just release it completely. And if you've had the Kriya Yoga instruction and know what a Kriya Yoga pranayama is, I always run just a few, 3 or 5, something like that, just to kind of find my own energetic center and to find the peace in my mind. And then I again return to the top of my head and just relax there. And if you don't know those techniques, we'll connect you with somebody that can teach you and share it with you. And they're good centers all over the world in every city. And we know lots of friends that teach and initiate in that tradition. So do your kriyas, or just sit at the top of the head and monitor your breath coming in and coming out. And then if you know what it means to sit in the golden light, or in the Buddha or the Christ light, do that. If not, just think of the devotion in your own heart to the tradition that you're most comfortable with, and center in that, and bring forth in your mind the greatest teacher or greatest example of that you focus your attention on. And here I always ask for divine guidance, for understanding, for knowledge, for the ability to communicate in a way that may help others to understand their own being. And then if you think of God, however you conceive it, I call it Godhead, or Oversoul, or Great Supreme. Move your consciousness into that awareness and become one with that infinite source of life, that infinite expression of which we're a manifestation. We're an expression of the divine. And then bring your consciousness back to body awareness. If you want to hear boring words about prayer, or if you touched it and it's you're at the edge of the ocean, I'd say just dive in and enjoy the bliss. And one image, I have several images in the presentation today, and one, I posted this on Facebook and I sent it to some, and it was sent to me Easter morning by a very good friend, a lady named Lyndall Demaray. She's a psychologist and counselor, therapist, spiritual healer, and she blesses things like this and sends them out. And she's Catholic, very much tied to the Catholic expression and understanding, but a very powerful spiritual healer. And a few months ago, I'll just share stories because they're related to prayer. And what I'm trying to do is share some stories that and examples of people I've met or people I know that I consider very powerful in prayer, and that have gifts in that area. And when few months ago there was an opportunity, she has interest in donating some funds to the IONS, the Institute of Noetic Science. And as she expressed that to me, I said, I know all those people, and arranged a meeting and brought the CEO and the chief scientist, Dean Radin, and one of their business development executives to Carmel by the Sea, where she lives, and arranged a lunch and an introduction. And when we spent a little time in her office and they were all getting to know her and stuff, and I was sitting across the room completely on the other side from the IONS people, and she talked for an hour or so, and they exchanged, and then she turned to me and said, "Well, you haven't said anything." And when she did that, her office is has windows all around it, and it's a large room, and it was a cloudy day. And when she focused her attention on me, all of a sudden the clouds parted and just a ray of sunlight came in, and I felt the warmth of the sun immediately. And I looked at her, and she did that little wink in the eye and twinkled a little bit. And I thought to myself, I wondered if anybody else saw what happened. And I just thought that, and then spoke to her later about it. And she said, yeah, she noticed when she was as a child, she had an ability to focus light and to bring it into awareness. And, I received a particular blessing, but I like this image because it reminds me of that time and that image. But, she does very, very fine work. She teaches, lectures and does counseling and work in spiritual healing, and is quite an amazing being. But they're out there. And when I have some great issue in my life, I always do all I can in my own prayer and my own stillness and centering. But I find sometimes especially if I'm emotionally involved or, physically involved, something that may be affecting me or whatever, I am very open and often, ask those, I call them prayer warriors or, prayer masters, ask for help and ask for guidance. And I found it can be amazing in the transformations that you see occur from engaging with someone of that type, or someone that has that is there. I know a few people, and I think it's ironic in a sense. They all tend to be women, and so I have a view or a belief in that women are better at prayer maybe than men, but that's not necessarily confirmed. I'm sure it's just a bias I have, but it can be very helpful. And then one other thing, and some of these things, post on Facebook sometimes just to see a reaction and see what people are thinking. But I found this one particularly useful for me recently, and it wherever you stand, be the soul of that place. It's a quote from a poem of Rumi, and it's good to advise. And since I'm an Aries, I was, the ram. I found this image once and I always liked it. And I thought, this guy, he's the soul of that place, and it's a good example that can be focused in your own life. And then I found this recently and thought it was appropriate for several of the people that I'd been talking to recently. And I said, ring the bells that can still ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Leonard Cohen, and many of you may be familiar with his music, and can be quite inspirational. But I think it's very important to realize that it seems like as I share with people and students and things that often there's a feeling that I'm not perfect, and it's that's part of my problem and things like that. I'm unworthy, all those things. And I think a reframe of those ideas and seeing that it's truly our imperfections or our openings that allow the light, the awareness, the grace of God to come in. So be grateful for that and try to realize that, when it seems like things are bleak and maybe not going the way you would like them to, or everything's against you, and it's a messed up world, that may be the only way the light can get to you. And then if you find this, this was on one of my feeds this morning, another Rumi quote: if everything around you seems dark, look again, you may be in the light. And I thought that's a beautiful metaphor, because as I talk to people from various times, often they are completely consumed and feel hopeless. And they describe, when they describe it, it's a darkness, it's a heaviness, and all that. And we can get our consciousness into those places. Prayer and meditation is an excellent way to get out of it, but also reframing it in a way that shows the true nature of your own being. And it helped me. One of the other things I liked very much about this is, as we have talked in the past few months about the gross, subtle and physical and causal worlds, or causal expression, or the gross being the physical body, the subtle being the dream worlds, the etheric, the astral, all the levels in between, and here in the place where duality forms, fall into that subtle realm. But when you're in that realm, everything you see, it either has a light within it, or you don't see it. There's no objects. And if it is self-luminous, like a being, or I've seen plants that have, these special powers and healing and stuff, sometimes those actually have light and consciousness within them. So you go into those realms, and some of the people I know that, find mushrooms and plants and all those things, that's one of the ways they do it, is they can simply close their eyes and see the ones that are filled with light. And that's the ones that have the psychotropic factors, or, can expand or open consciousness. The peyote, the Jimson weed, things of that type, the ayahuasca, a number of different herbs and compounds have ability to help you see that light, or they effectively open your mind into the subtle realm for a little while. And it's generally a temporary state. Rarely is it permanent, but it can be very useful. But having the proper perspective and frame to look at your life and look at the issues sometimes is all it takes. And then one of Audley's drawings that I had, I'd say I had a artist redraw it and try to, be close to it, but to make the colors more vibrant, because the picture I had was taken from long ago and kind of faded. And Audley, often he was trying, as an artist, he was trying to draw things in a way, or show them in an example that they looked in the etheric world. And so the things that had light within them, he would draw them, and often use a very dark blue or purple, or in this case, black felt paper. And the only thing at that time that could really do truly, brilliant colors was there were chalk colors, and he was really quite good. All of his drawings of the kingdom and everything were done on this felt paper and that. And when they're first done, they're really just phenomenally brilliant. As with time, they fade and the chalk seems to brush off for things, and so it's a medium that gives an effort to show what it looks like in the inner world. And when we talk about, one of the reasons I pulled this in and used it again is when we talk about prayer, usually we're talking about the spoken word. And a real interesting thing, like we talked about mantras and chanting and stuff last week, and the sound currents and the path that we were taught by Audley, and it's also in the Kriya Yoga traditions. It's the same technique, in fact, in Kriya Yoga, and it's used by many of the spiritual traditions. But it says, basically focus, become aware of the flow of life force, feel it in your body, and then turn your sense perception inside. Try to see how that life force expresses in the mind and through the various centers. And then most importantly, listen to the sound that the life force makes as it flows through our body, our kingdom, all the different levels. It really, as it flows through the chakras, it actually produces astral sounds. And the path of meditation, the path of the holy Nam, the root path that Audley shared with us from Dr. Thin, it's that path of the sound current. And he drew this. There's a lot of things in the Kabbalistic traditions or the Hebrew traditions that talk about the spoken word, and in the Bible, in the Christian traditions, it even says there, and God said, "Let there be light." The sound expresses, or the sound was expressed, and that actually created the manifestation of the light, the awareness, all those other things. And sometimes we lose sight of that. I find people really like the light, and they want to do, spend as much depth and time in it as they can, and that's good. But you can easily be deceived when you're seeing light. Has been my experience. You can find false images, and unless you're very good at discrimination and know how to pull the curtain back and see what's causing that image or that light, even a brilliant white light, it doesn't take you back into the source in a way that you might like. And so, but the sound, you can concentrate on that, and you can express through that. And he always said, follow that sound, follow it to the source. The light will be your protector. And so as we talk about prayer or speaking, there's different types of prayer, and I'll talk about some of those. But and different people, when they speak a prayer or chant a mantra, they express in one of the rays. Like there's 7 rays coming out of the mouth of the Creator, or the one speaking in this point. And those 7 rays are the rays of creation, all of manifestation. The chakras are a reflection of those different rays. And so the energy affects things in different ways. And when you pray, it's best to pray from the highest level or aspect that you can find, and have balance. And I always marveled at the way this drawing was done, with the crowns, the 3 crowns, and then the precious jewel, and then the cross on top, showing the balance. And then he drew it in the reflection, so above, so below. And so it helps us to know that whether you approach it from the divine Godhead, or whether you approach it from the physical form, the heaven and earth are united, and that's what is the creation and expression of humankind. And there's a lecture, and I couldn't find the link to it, that Connie posted just a little clip from it that someone had videoed years ago. But it talked a little bit about this creative process and the lecturing. And Connie, maybe we can repost that or add this to the slides afterwards, the link to that, and we'll be able to do something with it. But in that lecture, he's talking about, and I always wondered when he first started talking about this stuff, was it a golden bow or a golden bowl? And in the lecture, it actually sounds like a golden bow. And when, when I ran it through even the transliteration tools or transcription tools I have, it picks it up and it thinks it's a golden bow because of his accent and the way he said it. And I thought about that, but when he was first doing some of these lectures, I thought he was saying golden bow, and he was really saying golden bowl. And and he did a number of classes about that I called them, they're exercises in concentration and prayer. They're very powerful, showing people how to manifest or bring things into reaction. But when I first heard all that, and I went to him and I wanted to know more about the bow, and he kept looking at me kind of funny and saying, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, the golden bow. And I didn't have this image, but I said, it's like the archer, it's like the bow and arrow. And he says, that works real well. Focus on the target and shoot the arrow. And then he said, but what I was really talking about was a golden bowl, but either one of them works. So I thought that's good. And so I've played around a lot with that over time, and use it for a lot of my prayer or meditation. And maybe someone that has good notes on that, or good, some video recording or audio of it, they can put the notes together and help us to recreate that class. I think that might be fun. It's quite a powerful technique. And but one of the things that I've noticed in playing with it is that for me, and I think it's often, I'm often delighted in the conversations I have with Connie and the stuff online. We see it from much different perspectives. And for me, the golden bowl, when I'd get into it, it actually looked like it was upside down, or that was my perception. And I sometimes see things just the opposite from other people. And that's probably the reason why I have some dyslexia. It's some way in the way that my brain is wired. But then I started reading about, and studying about prayer more and how it works. And there's a quote in the Bible that, I think it's from in Ecclesiastes, but oddly referenced some of it in the lecture, the little, 2 or 3 minute, 5 minute clip of the lecture. And he was talking about the silver cord and the golden bowl. And those are actually referenced in the Bible. And I thought, gee, I don't remember that. But I looked it up, and then I looked at some of the commentaries on it, and several of the people that commented on it said the reference to the golden bowl was really the skull, and when it was filled with the golden, powerful, creative light, it could aid in manifestation. But it said what he was, one of the authors that I was reading, and I thought was very useful. He said, when you learn to focus your mind and control your thoughts and become one pointed, the brain turns golden in color. And when that happens, it can manifest and create. And I thought, well, wow, that's a beautiful expression of it, and a visual image that is very helpful for me. And so maybe it's of some use to you, and you can enjoy it. And then another thing that I have found in trying to help people understand the prayer process, the energy awareness and stuff. And a lot of this, I pulled most of it from the little clip that, again, Connie posted a few weeks ago about the airbenders. It's a little, it's an animated movie that has some really, really cool stuff, but there's a lot of spiritual teaching in it. And in one place, the young boy is sitting there talking to the guru, and the guru is explaining it in the little clip on YouTube that I think I've got in the next section. It's about a 10-minute clip out of it. He talks about cleaning and clearing and healing the chakras, and doing all this, and kind of gives a level. And it says that even whoever posted that clip said it's a child's level understanding of the sacred power and how it works. But with the chakras, and the reason I'm trying to lay kind of a groundwork for this is knowing what you are. and knowing how the life force expresses through you, and the things that may be blocking your flow, that prevent you from having peace, from having abundance, from having relationships, all those things. I thought the information there was so useful that I put it all in a table and pulled in a few other resources to fill in the missing insights. But they list the chakras in terms of earth, water, fire, air, sound, light, and thought as the main function of that chakra. And then the colors, we've talked about those, but the red, orange, yellow, and then you get to the heart, and it's green, pink, golden. I see it in different colors depending on the expression. On the throat chakra, sky blue is the way some people describe it. I see it more as a deeper blue, but I'm very much aware now that as I explore these things, everything I see is colored by my own biases and perceptions and beliefs and everything else. And then the color of the third eye chakra is the indigo. That's pretty consistent, deep, really deep purples and stuff like that. And then the crown chakra, Sahasrara, the white or the violet. And I think Audley draws them in his images. We'll look at some of those as being a combination with the white right in the center and more of the violet out around it. And this gives the locations in the body, what they deal with. And Audley talked very similar, with the alignment with the chakras, what concept or what single item would best describe them. And it's, survival for the root chakra, pleasure for the sacral, the procreation, the genital area is where it's really focused. And then the stomach or life power, and many people call that the seat of willpower. Audley referred to it more as the life power, and he talked about the third eye center being the center of willpower. And then pretty consistently, people speak of the heart as being love, and then the throat, it deals with truth, and then the third eye deals with insight, and the crown chakra with pure cosmic energy. Now, the things that I have seen, and what I like so much about the little video about the airbender, firebender guys, and all of the element benders, is that there you get a blockage or damage or trauma, abuse, any number of things can affect it in the chakra, and there are very definite correlations between the chakra level and what the person is experiencing. And if you have issues in survival, in early life trauma, all those things, invariably it fills you with fear. And you're afraid sometimes to go outside, but every decision you make, everything that you view, everything you hear it in terms of fear, and you hold back. You may not express yourself because you're afraid of what people might say. You may not love someone because you're afraid of being hurt, and those things. And if there's blockages in that center, that dominates your awareness. And it's very difficult. I found people can pray all they want and chant and do all sorts of things, but if they don't clear the centers and enhance that flow of energy, repair it if it's damaged, and that's what Audley was the master at, is how to fix the centers and how to open that up so that the flow is there. And then once the stream is open and flowing, if you step into it, focus on the sound, you can go back to the source. But if you have not been cleaned these, you only get partially back. It's something that holds you back. And like with the sacral center, the area there is guilt that affects it. It's usually guilt in terms of self-blame. You feel remorse because something you did may have hurt someone or killed someone, or caused a great problem, and you're the blame for all of it. You're the reason. And I know I saw both of these, and really those three, the shame and the next, I saw them expressed in my mother very much in her later years, especially. It was more easy for me to see those, and so I spent a lot of time with her in the last few years of her life and tried to examine them. and see what it was. And I remember a lot of her started with a sense of shame and and guilt followed with that, and then there was a lot of fear, but she would translate that into such a way that even when there was a, a great tornado that came through and destroyed a bunch of homes and killed a bunch of people and did a lot of damage, she would feel personally responsible for it. I saw her see events like that, or like some of the tsunamis that occurred and stuff like that, where there was a great loss of life. She felt personally responsible and that it was in some way her fault, but that was because of blockages in those centers, and and she was simply not able to move past some of them. And she prayed a great deal. In fact, she often had visions of Jesus. And I remember one time in the last year of her life, I went to visit her, and she was just sitting there filled with bliss. It's just like she was smiling so much, and I reached out to give her a hug, and she said, "Can you wait just a minute?" She said, "Jesus is here and he's holding my hand." And I thought, wow, that was her expression of her devotion to God. And so it was very beautiful. But it's you see a lot of things and you learn from them. And then the ones that get us a lot for when we start trying to consider prayer or using the mind in that way, or using our awareness, the 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 issues that are blocked in the throat center often give us the biggest problem, I think. I mean, from what I've seen in people talking to me, and it's lies, since the throat chakra deals with truth, the pathology or the problem in that area, it's lies, and it's primarily the lies that we tell ourselves, like, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve that. I'm not smart. And we have all these crazy ideas, and often we go over them and over them and over them. And if that energy is not flowing there, you can get caught in them. And I see people that end up in deep depressions that are all tied to those. And so I've began to focus. And when I see someone that's struggling, or they call me and talk to me, I try to assess it in terms of, okay, where's the energy blocked, and how is it manifesting, and what can be done. And then the third eye, it deals with insight, but it's blocked by illusion. And that I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. But it can truly be devastating. We have the wrong idea, and our biggest illusion in this life, or in this world, in this consciousness, is that we think we're other than the creation. We're not one. We have a mistaken identity. We think we're this body or this form, that we have this job title, and we have these family members, and maybe these children, and maybe these things that we've done, and that we've studied with this teacher, and he's no longer here. And I just thought, boy, now that's an illusion. That's a false awareness. But all of those, they have issues or manifestations. I call them pathologies, and there's lots of nice, easy techniques. And if you don't get that power flowing, or that life force flowing easily through the body, you can pray, but it's more difficult. And then once you do, you pray, and it's like things appear almost out of thin air. I mean, they manifest, they come into your reality. And the one that I found in this that was probably the most enlightening for me was that crown chakra. I never thought of it having a pathology. It seemed to be like, this is Godhead, or this is awareness. This is the center of creation. But the true pathology there, or what blocks it, is our attachment to the worldly things, to the body, to the wealth, to the beauty, to the lovely woman, or the handsome man, or the fast car. It's the objects in the world, and we we think about those and have more attachment to those than we do to the divine self that we're an expression of. And so when we have that kind of earthly attachment, uh, we we can't pray very well. And you can even identify if you ask people, tell me about what you're praying. What are you praying for? And if they have strong earthly attachment, it's primarily the petitionary prayer, and they're asking God for, oh God, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz? The famous Janis Joplin line. And I think it's kind of fun, but you can see what people will pray for. You can see how they will pray and what type of prayer they will use based on how the energy or how the chakras are blocked, or how the life force is not flowing in a balanced way through the body. And hopefully that sets a little bit of perspective that may be useful. And then the greatest illusion of this world is the illusion of separation, that we're not one with God. We're not one with all creation. We're not one, somehow or another we have the illusion that I'm standing on the ocean watching the waves. I have an illusion right now that I'm sitting in Santa Cruz, California, in front of my MacBook, doing a lecture or discussion, or spending some time with friends talking about prayer. And even the separation of the four elements, like earth, wind, fire, air, even that's an illusion. Accept the reality that these things happen, whatever has happened in your life, but do not let them cloud and poison your energy. Don't let it throw stuff in the stream and block the flow of energy. And then there's a couple of links here. I won't open those now, that go to the little video that Connie had posted first, and that I've been going over many times and learning from. And then there's another one that I found that has some excellent information about chakras, and it has things like specific mantras for chakras. It has a lot of information on the color in the chakra, the kind of crystals and stones or practices that can calm the chakra, can help open the chakra and balance the flow and be protective. And I know one of them is it's good for the heart in particular, but it's black obsidian is a crystal, and I'd seen this a few weeks ago or a few months ago, I guess, online, and ordered a little medallion. And a few days ago, I was having a lot of energy in my heart. And it, the little card that came with it said, this is very good at calming and protecting one spiritually, but also, in bringing peace and bringing balance. And I put it on, and I was so amazed. It's one of those things that I hadn't felt something like that in quite a while, and I felt it. And then about 20 minutes, the post lady that delivers our mail here showed up, and this is a little bitty package that came from India where I'd ordered it, and I put it on, and it immediately made me feel better. So I thought that's good. And then other things that I try to position, and I show this slide, in most of the lectures, is I like to validate the teaching, validate the path, validate, the path of meditation, or in this case, I started to change it in the path of prayer, but understand the information. How do you pray? And then test the information. Does it work? And I think I have a quote, from one of my prayer friends, Ellen Grace O'Brien, the spiritual founder and director of the Center for Spiritual Enlightenment. And she said that's the number one question she gets about prayer is, does it work? And then correct information. If you pray and you try it. When I find people, give me all kinds of ideas and things, and I just try them, and the ones that work, I keep. If I find I can enhance it just a little bit, I try to do that, and then refine and improve descriptions and language. And that's what I'm trying to do about prayer here. And then use the best possible metaphors, analogies to describe the process. Explain it in current scientific, linguistic, and religious terms. Make it easy and clear. Make it accurate, useful diagram. Try to do diagrams, tables, whatever, to make it more clear. And then provide examples in supporting scientific information for meditation or prayer. And to this end, it's just like a lot of you know me, and I like to dive into the scientific explanation of things. And I got involved with the Institute of Noetic Science that has a bunch of scientists that they do the damnedest things. Like they study about, is prayer effective? Does it work? Well, they very cleverly set up experiments, and there's fairly well documented in scientific papers or from a lay perspective. They're well done, documented in Dr. Dean Radin's works, or Dean Radin, PhD, I think is how he presents it. But we usually call him Dr. Radin, and he set up experiments, and they did a bunch with where they had Tibetan Buddhist monks and Christian, they're not monks, but they're very devoted Christians that use prayer in their practice. And they took samples of things like green tea. They had some samples blessed and some samples not blessed. And they took samples of chocolate, said that was the easiest one to get volunteers for, because they needed people that would, when their iPhone or their app or their computer alerted them that, okay, it's 10 o'clock, it's time to drink your tea or eat your chocolate, and they do that. And then they have these psychiatric questions, or like, how does it make you feel, and did you feel better, worse? And you can write some in, but it's really well done, well defined studies that they can test the effectiveness. And then they thought, someone thought, well, we can grow plants, and we can pray for the seeds and see if they grow any better. And then we can look at things that like how fast they grow, how strong the stem is, how quickly they form the first split for leaves, and do all that stuff. And the net result is they find very statistically very significant results that show there's a positive effect of praying for people. And they've done them with laying on of hands and all types of Reiki treatments and all that. But you can measure these things with scientific instruments, and you see it. And once you play with it and you see it, it has an interesting way of kind of making you think it's more real. And I thought that may be an illusion, but for me, it works. And I have a small team of engineers, and we meet once a week, and we've been working on a project. One of the things they have found is that they call it, the prayer and contemplation, meditation, all those things, and then they kind of lump it together. Well, bottom line, can the mind, or the focused attention, the awareness of humans affect matter? And basically, can you make things happen with your mind? And one of the experiments they set up is they take a nice large plasma ball, these plasma streamers. You can get them at in any mall, usually has some gift shop or something that has these things, and you turn them on, and all these little streamers go out to the edge of the glass and do that. And they said, well, plasma is a very sensitive thing, easy to affect with the mind. And so if you can affect that, maybe we could have people do an experiment where they concentrated on the right side and see if more streamers go there, or to the left bases versus a control experiment. So they set up experiments, did a demonstration, and we're trying to, with this team of engineers, they've written a bunch of code now, and we got cameras that watch the balls and all the image recognition and image analysis. And it does show that, the mind does have an effect. And so the reason I try to describe things like that is that when you pray, that's what you really want to do. Can you have an effect, or is it simply the grace of God? You just say, oh, I need this. And then God flows that into you, and you're okay. And it's interesting to see if that can be known, but it looks like there are actually ways to test that and to find it. And then we've talked often about waking consciousness, dream consciousness, sleep, deep sleep, no dreams, turiya, the pure awareness, that part of us that's aware that we're having a dream or that we were asleep. And then when you get into that fifth state, turiya tita, true oneness, everything is arising. Even consciousness at that point. it goes deep into it. And the level of Turiya is really the causal realm at its best. We call it Godhead, Great Supreme, all those things. And when you get your consciousness there, you can see it. But the thing I like to emphasize, and I don't think it can, for most people, you can go over it enough, is that when you're born, even as a newborn baby, you have the waking consciousness. You're awake for a little while. You dream, and then you sleep. And those are available to all of us all the time, no matter what. Whether or not you've ever meditated, whether or not you've ever read a book, ever been to a church or a temple, ever had any thought, these are states of consciousness, and it's part of how we express as the life force flows through us. It's part of what we are. And then the key part of all of it, and this is the part where you start talking about doing, I would say, deep prayer or true prayer, is you want to touch that non-dual, pure manifestation of consciousness. There's a point as you move inside, as you go deeper and deeper into the Godhead, or however you see that, where you really become touching the source. And some people call that touching the infinite, or touching the hem of the infinite. Like there's a reference in the Bible of a woman that has a problem, and she heard about Jesus, and she's following him along, in the crowd, and she has great shame, and doesn't want to reveal herself, but she knows in her heart that if she just touches the hem of the garment, of the robe that he's wearing, that there would, even just a touch would bring enough energy and awareness to heal her body. And Jesus, as he was being Jesus and sensitive to all things, it's just like nobody else even noticed this lady kind of crawling almost up to his garment and touching it, in reverence. But he feels the flow of energy, and he talks to her. There's a beautiful parable or story in the Bible about how that manifests. But it just shows you that part of consciousness, once you get into that, can become the source of all things. It can heal the body. It can heal the mind. It can release all the flow in the chakras, and let them flow easily. And and I've been fortunate in my time with Audley, and in my life since, that I've seen many examples of what I would call just the instantaneous healing in people, or changes. And one of our old friends, Johnny Martin, who some of you know, I found he was particularly good at praying for animals, for pets and stuff. And and people would call him and say, my dog has this problem or stuff. And one time we were spending quite a lot of time together, and a person called him and said their dog, and it was a golden retriever, had a large growth that had just appeared in the past few days, right on the top of the dog, on the spinal cord, and it was clearly in great pain, and Johnny, and they'd taken it to the vet, and the vet said, it's cancerous. You're the best thing, most compassionate thing you could do was put your pet down, and minimize the suffering. But the person was very attached to the animal, and which is, I think, everyone that has a pet or has someone they care about is very attached, and they didn't want to do that. So they called Johnny, and I knew this person, and I'd seen the dog, and I had seen the growth. Starting the last time I'd seen it, I saw this lump on its back, and I watched Johnny, and he said, well, let me see. And he did, his normal dialogue, and in what I would describe as prayer for it. And he said, some pets he'd seen that, had issues like that. He said, it's their time. You can't do anything with them. But he said, looks like, your pet will be okay. And I thought, this is interesting. Yeah, we have a test right here in front of us, and I wished I'd had instruments at that time to be able to measure some of this. But there's many cases of recorded spontaneous, remission of cancers and various things, and um, what the doctors say it's impossible, and then a prayer group from the church comes in and prays and holds hands and prays for them for a while, and then the next day all the trace is gone and they go out. And it doesn't happen to everyone in all cases, but those that are in harmony with the divine and they still have something to express, they given an opportunity, is the way I look at it, to learn how powerful the divine is in their life. And so they're instantaneously healed or transformed. And prayer can be at that level and that power. So that can be useful. And then, I like to show these drawings and, just to kind of jog people's memory. But they're very useful in trying to understand it and trying to understand the chakras and the flow. But one of the things I wanted to show in this is that when we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about prayer, when you pray, you can, a lot of people, they just, mumble a few words and may or may not believe it's going to work, but they'll try it because that's what they were taught, and that's what the cultural norm is, or various things. But when we pray, you want to get as far or as deep into your consciousness as possible. And the most powerful prayers for me is to get to the Godhead awareness. And you can't think in that level, but you can be conscious in that level. The turiya, the level of the fourth state. It's just like we have the waking state, the dream state, the sleep state where we're not conscious, and then we have that part that's watching, or that's always conscious, and that's that divine self, that part that we know. And as I go into that, if I want to take my prayer or the thought in going into that, and I just release it into that, and don't ask for anything, just say, oh, my friend has asked for healing, and I'll speak their name or think their name in my mind, and I'll take it into that and say, basically give them what they most need. And I don't know what that might be. Sometimes it's healing. Sometimes, it's just like, it's just to comfort their mind because they're on the path to their unfolding or dissolving of energy. Their time is come, and they're, transitioning from this level into the other level, and they'll be back. So, it's like, there's no fear in that. I just know that whatever they need, they will have. And in my heart, my awareness, I just, ask the divine part of myself, or if I'm sitting with them or talking with them by phone and can merge in that consciousness, I just ask that they have and they receive what they most need in this life. And some people, like I told you about my friend, Lynn Demeray, and she can focus in that way, and the clouds will part and sun will shine on that person. I mean, there are people that have that gift, and they're really very good at prayer, very powerful. And then once the centers are more unblocked, or in some cases, like I've talked to a lot of people, and what they're most concerned about is, they have fear, hurt, and pain because of loss of a loved one. It's like grief in the heart, or the broken heart because of the relationship. And I find people come, wherever I am, they just show up. Like, I'm helping the family here with this small hotel right now. And I thought it was ironic. I was working on this, my slides and my thoughts and my ideas, and spending time in meditation trying to prepare for this. And then all of a sudden, a few guests come in that have the really deep struggles. One of them, it was a young man that came in, and he had moved to California from another city last year, and he came here because his girlfriend, his sweetheart from high school, she had moved here and they were planning to get married, and it was his fiance. And then 4 months ago, she dumped him, and he's been in a real depression. But he's a courageous young man, and when he first came to California, she brought him here and took him to the beach and took him to Capitola and did all these things. And he said that all of them reminded him of her so much, but he realized he couldn't move forward until he got that out of his system. So he had enough courage to actually come and go back to all the places and then go spend time by the ocean and find some healing. But he was depressed to the point, it's just like occasionally a person comes and stays here, and they've been maybe very lonely because of the pandemic and the isolation and all those things, but also they may have a broken heart. And so he continually came to talk. He wears his mask and does all that appropriately distanced, but he sensed something. It's like he felt a need to share that experience and to share what had happened. And it was an opportunity for me to help him see and understand. And I finally told him, after like the fifth or sixth time he'd been, he'd come in to talk to me. And last evening I was sitting there working on my slides. I said, well, I really need to finish this right now, but it's a lecture I'm giving tomorrow on prayer, and I'll be praying for you. And he found some fulfillment. And then he came in, and I talked to him briefly this morning as he was leaving, and he said, he appreciated it, and he appreciated being here, and said, just like I told him, he was already starting to feel better because he had been to the ocean. And I said, well, that's amazing. And then another gentleman came in last night, and he had just had a big issue with his wife, and they had just gotten a big fight and were separating, and he was spending some time away and wanted to know if he could book a week and do all that stuff. And he said something, and then I made a comment, and then he told me what had gone on and what had happened. And I thought, this is strange to meet a stranger. And they I guess I consider it, maybe from my priest days, they feel it's okay and it's safe to confess, and so they tell me about the situation. And then one of the texts that I had there that I was pulling notes from was a text called Quantum Entanglement. It's a very good book on quantum mechanics. But he said, "Is that your book?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I just finished that. It's a phenomenal book." And I said, "You're right. It's the best one I've seen." But it had some really great ideas about entanglement and how we world and how we involve in the world. And the reason I was looking at it and have a great fascination and read and study and listen to books every day on that topic is there's a lot of things in the spiritual awareness that are often described in terms of entanglement, or two particles having the same properties. And when we fall in love, we get close to someone, we get entangled with them, and we can feel their thoughts, we can feel their feelings, we can feel their love expressing and radiating. And if that is violated or broken, it can be very painful. It's like a part of us has been gone. And it would be nice if we could easily break the entanglement, but it looks like it takes time to break those energy ties between us and another being. But again, perfect examples and opportunities for prayer, perfect opportunities to be of service. And if you get into that state where people sense that when they approach you, they will often tell you what's going on, and they don't ask directly, can you help me? But they're saying it in a way that it allows you to provide a prayer for them, and provide maybe a reframe of seeing where they are and what they're doing. So very, very nice way to look at it. And that, I think we can move past. And some of the prayer resources that I have found very helpful. I had in the study with Audley, he talked about prayer in a lot of different ways, and often from I would say a more Christian tradition. And and we often, we even had songs and books about the Lord's Prayer, and how Jesus taught the students to pray. But I found that some of the friends I met here in California, Ellen Grace O'Brien Center for Spiritual Awareness, and one of the things, there's a little, they do a monthly book. It was changed to the Enlightenment Journal in 2010, and I think it was the archives are all there back to that, and the original name on it was called Offerings, but it was a little pamphlet or brochure or little book that was sent out monthly to members and those that donate. And still, if you donate to their center and sign up, they send you the Enlightenment Journal, which has excellent information in it. And like Roy Davis, he always published one. She follows she's a student of his, and so she he provides an offering in the same way, or a service. And the Center for Spiritual Awareness in Lakemont, Georgia, that Roy's center, they always, and for I think 42 years or something, he produced the Truth Journal, which was a little book in the same way that had basic guidance and information on it. But this particular version of Offerings has an excellent article about prayer, and I was trying to find copies of it so that I could share. And they said that they have somewhere, it's in the archive, but it's 10 years ago, so they didn't know. But I liked the article so much long ago, I typed it all into the computer, and if anybody wants it, I'm happy to share it with you. It's really quite insightful in prayer. And then her book, Living the Eternal Way, it has some excellent resources on prayer and aligning in the body, and how to pray and how to do it. And then one of her more recent books, I think, came out in the last year, maybe 2 years, The Jewel of Abundance, Finding Prosperity Through the Ancient Wisdom of Yoga. And it's prosperity in things, in peace, and in conscious awareness, but very beautiful, a beautiful book. It's available in audio and in print, but it's resources that can be very helpful. And then another one that I found very useful, and it's a book that was actually written by Roy Eugene Davis. And in 1964, he lectured to a large audience in 8 cities in Japan under the auspices of the Seiichi no Ie movement. And it was founded by Dr. I think it's Masahiro Taniguchi. And then they actually sponsored another thing later. And in time, that organization built centers in the US. And I know there's one in San Jose, California, that's a beautiful place. But he teaches a method of prayer and formulation. And I think he was one of these people. He was a high-powered executive that was diagnosed and terminal, and was in the hospital, and wasn't given long to live. And someone brought him a book about prayer, and he thought, what have I got to lose, at this point? And he started praying, and when he did, he had one of these spontaneous remissions, and got up the next day and said he was fine, walked out of it, and then devoted the rest of his life to building businesses that were supportive of that, and founding this movement that taught people how to pray. And they have some prayer, I would call them prayer formulas in a sense, but they had a very beautiful way of defining the prayer in such a way that you can basically use it as a template. You can pull out the it has one version I have, and I was looking for it and didn't find it, but I'll add it to the slides later today. But it's kind of a template that you can take out a number of the little slots, and there's about 5 or 6 places where you can put your name or the name of another, and you can pray for yourself. But it's a perfect reframe that is easily energized, and can have transformational effects on your consciousness, or your awareness, your personality. And so it's a nice text. And I looked it up on Amazon this morning. I thought people would find it interesting, but it looked like it was $75 and not available. I think the Center for Spiritual Awareness in Lakemont, they might have it, or if enough people request it, I know all the founders out there, if you can't find one, I'll request it and see if they can do a reprint. I know they have the text on it, but it's an excellent text, and it has a nice story that goes with it. And it's things that, again, like I talk about validating it, improving it. For a couple of years, I used that prayer formula and found it worked extremely well for every way I applied it. And sometimes people would send me an email or a text or call me and say, can you pray for me? And I would usually just modify the formula and put their name in it or their situation. And I would pray myself for them a few times and then send it to them. And they found it always very useful. And some of the resources, one that I encourage people, send somebody there, sometimes every day, but at least every week. And the Center for Spiritual Enlightenment in San Jose has the link here is their prayer request link, and is actually just used to, you could fill it out online, but I think now it's all set up for an email, and you send in what you want in what you need, what your concern is in prayer. And it seems like when you read it on the site, it says the CSE prayer team offers support through knowledge that all things are possible in prayer. By requesting prayer support, you invite the care and encouragement of a team of ministers and trained volunteers who acknowledge God's presence in all phases of life. And each day, a prayer team member collects the online prayer request. Each prayer request is private and sacred and is acted upon immediately. And it sounds kind of mundane in a sense, and that's like a nice thing. But I was one of the volunteers in their prayer effort for a number of years, and got to know some of the truly focused prayer ministers. And there's a number of ministers or leaders in that group that their whole training and devotion in life, their way to be of service to others is to pray. And they take it with extreme seriousness. When the prayer request comes in, I know one of the ladies, she's working in an executive and active in her work and stuff, but there's 4 or 5 that get it. But if she's available at all, she immediately, she has an alert on that email. It's received on her phone or at her desk, and she immediately looks at it and formulates it. And you can ask that they provide a response, and they'll provide a prayer. And these people are trained and have been doing it for years. And there's about 50 people that I know that are in that group. And they take the prayers, they formulate a response, and sometimes it's brief, maybe a sentence, maybe a few words, but it is right to the point. And if you get that back, you can feel the energy and the presence of it when it comes back to you. But I have seen transformative things happen many times from that group. And as I had expressed a lot of interest in this and participated more in their work, I found they have 2 ways that you could get prayers in. They used to have a prayer line, but I think that is not done, where you could call in and leave it, but people had to take it off. So they just said send an email. It seemed like people had that available. They have a prayer request box at the opening of their temple, and you can drop a request there or send it in. And if it's dropped in the box, each day they pick those up and go through them and add them to the prayer list and do it. And then they continue to pray for you. But their services on Sunday, they always start with that prayer request. The prayers are collected and they're brought in, and they're placed in a special location, and the group as a whole prays. And it might be a couple hundred people, but the prayer ministers in particular pray for it. They take time in silence, and then Since I was kind of on the inside, I could see what happened, and they pray for them multiple times during that day for each of those prayer requests and responses. They are collected, and each month they're taken into the meditation center, into the temple in a very special place where they have a daily meditation, and they're placed in a container there. And the people that are in the prayer group, and those prayers are bathed in that energy for the next year. And so they continue support and prayer in that way. And if you have issues, I always tell people, like a lot of things I don't know, and I would say I'm an amateur when it comes to prayer, but these people know how to do it. And when they pray, the world moves. And then I think all of us are familiar with the Lord's Prayer. Oddly, often use this, and in introducing the Lord's Prayer, it's given to us by Jesus Christ. The Bible says, "When thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut the door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly." But when you pray, use not vain repetitions, as the heathens do. I think it's an interesting perspective in time, how they look at it. But for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before you ask him. And after this, pray in this manner. And then, it's our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, and we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. And that's Matthew 6, 6 through 13. Always very beautiful. And I think at this point, I know time-wise, we've kind of gone over a little bit. I have more stuff, and I can either take questions at this point and incorporate these in some of the future, or we can go on. Any feedback from the group? Anybody there? Well, I think we've been, we spent about an hour. So if we want to take a break, we can do it, and I can go through some of these in a little more detail, or we can do questions. And I'm open either way.
Ben, I had a question. I don't know if you want to wait until we take a break or not.
Yeah, no, we can do that. I'm okay for a break, but if others need to, bio break or anything like that, or you've heard all you want to hear of this kind of nonsense, it's fine.
We're still here.
Yeah, I get into kind of a blissful state, and it expands. So, I enjoy it, whatever we do. But I'm happy to take your question.
Okay, well, since there's no stampede, let's take a break. I had just thinking through prayer. I remember Adla used to say just what you said a moment ago. Like if you have someone who's sick, and they say we need prayers for someone who's sick, and he would say, don't necessarily pray for them to be healed, but pray for them to get whatever it is they need the most.
Correct.
But still, people pray for healing all the time.
Yes.
And just like Johnny and the dog,
right.
And it's when we ask for something that somebody needs, it's almost like, why aren't they going to already get what they need if that is in the plan? And what does it do? What does it do that we ask? Why is it we're asking, and what effect does asking have if that's already the plan?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question, and I appreciate you asking it. And the thing is that because of our experiences in life, we often have some view of what prayer is or that. But if we have blockages in those lower centers, we may feel guilty. If we have shame, we don't feel we deserve God's love and God's grace, and all those things. And so if you have those blockages in the flow of energy, it biases or it distorts your view of reality in a way that you may not think it's possible. And so you ask someone else to pray for you. And sometimes it's just because you're closely tied into it. It's just like if you're emotionally wrapped up in a broken heart, you can pray all you want, but you still feel the pain and you have trouble breathing. And so it's simply easier, and that's why I always take the easy way out of things, or the most practical solution I can find. And I realize real quick, I'm not able to calm my mind and to clear my energy and to get the flow right, because I'm so personally involved or upset about this particular item and things. And so I can't pray very well for myself in that way. And often I find it's easier to pray for others because I'm not involved. I don't, in a true sense, I don't care if they live or die. I just want them to have the awareness of the divine and to have what they most need. So I can formulate a powerful prayer in that sense and take it into the source and release it. And and then I trust that God will take care of them, or the life force, the awareness will take care of them and provide what they need. And if they say they need healing, I just say, if give them the healing they most need. And that may be healing their spirit. It may be removing the pain, helping them to deal with it and to understand what's happening so it can unfold. But and we don't have everything we need all the time, because we're not, as a rule, living in harmony with our divine self. And so we get blockages in the flow of energy, and then it expresses as a pain in the back, or as a broken heart, or a great sadness, or a depression, or a feeling of we lose someone we love very much, and so we have a great deal of grieving. We have problems. Our heart is hurt and our heart is heavy, and so we can't get beyond that. And so that's why it's so powerful to ask others to pray for you. And there's prayer lines. I mean, I looked one day, somebody asked me about, well, there's nobody to pray with them or pray for them. And they told me what city they were in. And I sent them a link that I had just pulled up from Google that had 50 different churches that had active prayer lines. If you wanted to just call that number and say, I need help in prayer, there's somebody sitting there, ready to take that. And there's one church I know in San Jose, and I don't know if they still do, but they used to have a 24-hour prayer line. And they had people that, they took turns. They were all volunteers, but they took turns taking the calls on that line. And, they don't get many calls in the middle of the night, but they often get calls that do come in from someone that's very depressed or considering suicide. So much shame or so much blockage in one of the centers, they see no hope. And so they see no way that God would consider them worthy enough to help them or heal them. And so, we all have our own pathology, our own issues, our own, I guess, distortions in our views and our biases and how we look at the world. And so we need help. But that's why if we're not living in harmony with the divine, then you don't have the things you need as you need them. And and it may be that if you're not living in harmony with the design, you don't eat a very good diet, and your body plays out on you, gives out. And we all die in the end, some people say. So why should I worry about that? Well, the longer you can be here and have that relationship with those you love and with the divine, and as long as you can be of service, it's a good place to be. It can be a beautiful world. Does that kind of address your question? I mean, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And what I got out of that is that the essence of most prayer is that whoever we're praying for, even if it's ourselves, that the essence of it is that they get more in line or in harmony with their divine
Right.
self.
Yeah. And somehow there's a couple of slides later. I'll move into that after, maybe after some questions and people take a break, but that talk about, it's a type of prayer called attunement. And if you truly want to pray and have a powerful result, the attunement, or aligning yourself, becoming one with the divine part of yourself, before you begin your prayer, they will always be more powerful and more productive and more efficient, and everything.
So Ben, the question, Petros has a question I'll get to as soon as I finish. I ask mine. Okay, so if we're really in attunement with our higher self and really in that flow, what Abraham Hicks would call alignment, then we don't really even need to pray, right? Because everything is unfolding in harmony with the plan that we are here to fulfill.
That's you could describe it in that way, but I think it's just like, I know people that touch alignment or attunement, and on a good day, I can be aligned in that way, and very peaceful, and then it's like I don't need prayer, and but when I'm out of sorts, or just distracted, or just watched an action movie, and my mind is kind of active, and it takes me maybe half an hour to even calm down in meditation. I keep getting in the fast car and going as, whatever. I mean, it's that kind of stuff. So it can be challenging, and some people are better at that alignment, and they stay there like, maybe a few hours every day. Or I know some people that, they're pretty consistent. They're there, most of the time. But the typical person that I know or that I meet, it's just like the two gentlemen I referenced, when they came in, both of them were way out of alignment, severe distortion in the heart, and feeling dejected and hurt. And it's hard to, attune at that point, or align and get what you need. It's just, we simply, we're suffering from an illusion. We think we're our body, we're the relationship, we're the thing, or we have an attachment to the world. We like a relationship, but we want it a particular way, and they need to talk a certain way, eat a certain way, wear a certain kind of clothes. They need to show up and always be well groomed. You can't tolerate it if they don't smell well. It's just like we're humans. And that's one of the things, like, the old guru in the little Airbender movie says, life happens. It's messy, things fall in the stream, it's just like, and it's our karma, in some cases, and oddly always describe this as a crisis bearing planet. This is where we come to work out our karma. The Buddhists say this is the realm of the precious human birth. They describe it as, this is the only realm and expression where you have the opportunity to align with the divine. And so we come here, and all beings in all levels, they long to have that precious human birth. And because in this world, heaven and hell, or the spirit and the divine, the gross and the causal come together. And you can become one. You can become aware of the source. And
Okay.
that's, it's a great way.
Petros has a question, so I'll read it for him, because he doesn't have a microphone, I guess. It says, how is prayer significantly different than meditation?
Excellent. The real difference in meditation, in general, and I say they're very similar. That's why I put like prayer and contemplation together, or manifestation. Or you could put prayer and meditation, like the one slide I showed, about validating the meditation practices. It's validating the prayer. And in meditation, we try to still the mind. And if you can still the mind, if you're very good at it, you have powerful concentration and you can focus, then you can still the mind, and you can touch or experience or taste you can the divine, and you can find that bliss, and you can do that. In prayer, usually there's a specific, and it's a type of meditation, but it's a specific type of need. Like, I'm in great pain. My friend has been hurt in an accident, or my pet has a health issue, and I don't know what to do with it. And the vet, one person I talked to, the vet told him it was $18,000 to do a specific type of surgery. And they didn't have the money, to do that. So they were concerned. So they called and said, "Can we pray?" And we did. And, they were, it improved the situation. But in meditation, we try to still the mind and cease thoughts. In prayer, it's taking a thought, and the more concise you can make that thought, the more focused and direct to the item that you can make that thought, and then you take it in and you project that. It's the last thought. Once you still the mind, it would be the last thought that you would have before you merge into oneness and into consciousness. You touch the hem of the infinite, or touch the hem of Jesus. If that is an image that is useful for you, then you simply do that. You see that in your mind, and you touch that. But you take something in and project it, and then you accept. You do it. And if you've meditated deeply and you've stilled the mind and eliminated all other thoughts, the prayer is extremely powerful. If you are still having a jumble of thoughts and that arise in the mind, the prayer is not as effective. It's just like you're taking up there and speaking in 5 or 6 different languages, and you're distracted and watching that person walk away, and you're angry at that person that used to be your boss. And even though you haven't worked for them in 20 years, they said things that hurt your feelings, and those still come up in your meditation, and you go over them and you feed them. So in prayer, we try to direct the thought, focus and direct the thought in. In meditation, we try to stop or still the mind completely. And if you can still it, then it's the perfect time to pray. That useful, helpful, make sense? Any other questions? If not, we can either.
Oh, wait, hold on. I was muted.
Okay.
He had a follow-up. He said, so effective meditation trumps prayer? It's better than prayer? It's more
No,
effective?
I wouldn't put them in that category. It's like, I would say more effective meditation enables the most powerful prayer, might be another way to say it. If you can really meditate well and do that, but those are skills and techniques that have been honed often by years or lifetimes of practice, to be able to meditate. If you can meditate and touch the source, you won't pray as much. If you meditate, like you begin meditating and you're finding a lot of benefits from it, but you still haven't had a samadhi or a satori or an experience of the oneness, then you can meditate and get as still as you can, and then you can still pray. You can say, "Divine, help me to see the parts of myself where I have blockages, or what's holding me back from knowing your true love and your true expression and the complete bliss." It can be a useful tool, but I would hold them as kind of distinct. And then there's, just like in meditation, many techniques and many levels, and the same in prayer. There's a number of prayer types that can be useful or used for different things. And depending on your level, education, religion, all those things, a lot of differences in how people pray.
Somebody had their hand up, but it's gone now. And I don't know if was it Janet that had her, Nancy? Somebody had their hand up, but then it's gone. It disappeared.
I didn't have my hand up, but I wouldn't mind saying something related to this lecture, I guess. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like Catherine.
Catherine, yeah. It's very interesting how you put together the chakras and the blockages and then the prayer. And what came to me through this lecture from my own personal experience, Audley's Jacob's Ladder initiation, that has been really a very important practice for me in my life.
Mhm.
And what's come through, it's not something that Audley told me to do with it, although later I heard a lecture where he talked about how that could be a powerful tool. But I didn't, it was a lecture he gave while I was in medical school. And I didn't attend that lecture. It wasn't until long after that I heard this lecture again. But at any rate, he talked about how you could use it to help people who are moving from, dying in the dying process.
Right.
So I have found it really very useful in that way. And what occurs to me is that what it does is basically clears all those blockages, each one,
Yeah.
one after the other, until the person's just completely free and they can let go.
Yeah.
And my most impressive experience with that was with my father, who is very religious, very Christian, the West, and he was dying, and they called me right before, if it looked like he was about to die. He was on hospice, and he waited for me. When I got there, I went over to his bed. There were all these people in the room, and so I wasn't about to do it with him. I wasn't going to talk to him about it. So I just went outside with him and took his hand, and we went through that, and it was just as vivid as it could be. And at the end of it, he took his last breath and he died.
Yeah.
It was just like that. So that was pretty amazing.
But that's the true power of prayer. It's just like, and when a person approaches death, the sense perception is heightened. You have the spiritual awareness, and there's one version of the Tibetan Book of the Dead that is, you can find it easily on YouTube, but it's Richard Gere, the actor, reading the whole thing, and it says the importance of having that type of knowledge or that type of prayer or that type of assistance, and either from your guru or a trusted participant in the path that you're on, like a parent or things like that, or someone else, is that when you talk to them and you can explain these things to them, you can say it out loud, and the body still may register those sounds, but it's all you have to do is think it in the heart, and in that level, or in the mind, and in that level, they're completely aware, and they can interact in that way, and you're in a state of heightened awareness. And so they say that, like with the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it's the path or the teaching that's liberation through hearing. And if you hear that Tibetan Book of the Dead even one time in your life, when you get to the end of your life, you will recall all of the instruction that's given about how to navigate between all the realms, and how to release and do the chakras and do all that. And they said in an ideal situation, when a student is passing, the guru would come and read that to them every day for 7 days or for so many days, and there's ceremonies and procedures to do that, but it helps them to liberate. But because of your connection to that source and your love for your father, you were able to, simply go in and establish a still point or a place in that prayer where he could immediately release and let go of the attachments to this world. And it's a very beautiful thing. And I had a similar experience with my father. He had stroke and stuff, and was unconscious for a couple of weeks. And then finally the doctors, they did all these tests and said, there's damage in the brain. Even if he were to recover, there would not be functionality. So, we made arrangements to take the life support off and let things, take their own course. And after the first week after that decision was made, there was constantly a group of people around him and stuff. And then after about a week, everyone had gone, and, you know, I'd still go and sit with him in the evenings and stuff. And I was sitting there and listening to one of Audley's lectures. And then we got to the part where the meditation was starting. And when that part began, I had an awareness that I had my eyes closed, you know, I was getting ready to meditate, but I had an awareness that my father in some way was, you know, trying to say something or do something. And, you know, but the body was laying perfectly still, you know, completely immobile. And, but I could sense a struggle, you know, and as I sensed that, and was in that state of mind, I simply prayed, you know, ask the divine self, please have mercy and do whatever is needed, you know, to respond to his request. And when I did that, you know, it was like the energy changed completely from that request or that prayer. And as it did, his body began to convulse in the solar plexus and in the heart, you know, and I could see it moving, you know, just like churning and doing it. And then I heard the snap, you know, when he separated from the form and the cord was broken. And then the body, you know, I stood and I looked at the body, and it immediately just changed color. The life force went out of it, and you know, and I knew he was gone. And I stood there for a few moments and prayed and centered myself, and then, you know, went to the nurse's station and said, you know, he's transitioned, you know, and they came and did the things they have to do, you know, in the processing and everything. But it just shows that if you are in alignment, just like you were with your father, you're able to help someone immensely. And a lot of the people that I know at the Center for Spiritual Enlightenment, there's a bunch of the women that are on the prayer team also work in hospice. They're hospice nurses and all that. And they've been very instrumental in helping me to understand the dying process and how to work with people in that state and do it. But you can do phenomenal things to help a person that's struggling in those last hours or days to liberate completely. You know, if you can help them to cross the bardo or the land, the transition realm, if you can help guide them through that, they move almost instantly through it into their own divine self, and in a very beautiful way to depart this world. Any other comments? Any preference on, you know, I can talk for a few more minutes on this, or I can include it in one of the future talks.
Include it in the future because I have to go.
Okay, well, let's do that. I'll just put a mark on it, but there is some useful information, and there's a couple of examples of prayers and prayer templates that I'll go through. And, you know, it's probably 15 or 20 minutes, but it's, I think, better to do it at another time when we're fresh, and we'll do that. And I want to thank all of you again, especially